Welcome to the Living Word Podcast. I am your host, Genevieve, and these episodes serve as a reminder to how essential your fullest expression is on this planet during one of the most transformative times in our history. Together, we are going to explore truth through vulnerable conversations about life's deeper meaning, exploring holistic wellness, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, love, and everything in between. Let's dive in, shall we? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Living Word Podcast. I am joined by an incredible woman today, Leah Van Dolder, and our paths were really aligned. We were brought together a couple of months ago, and I've been watching this incredible woman, you, online, and I'm really inspired by the way you attack life, where you go about life, the authenticity that you show, the way you bring people through a journey every single day from your regular life is really amazing. And Leah is a weight loss expert, a dietitian, a mindset and business coach, and you are really stepping into a whole new level of impact and influence. And I think that women specifically, which is a lot of the people listening to this podcast, women specifically, I think the word weight loss, and I think that whole theme is something that we really get to bring back to that inner core being of who we are, because we both know that it's a lot more than just on the outside, the scale numbers, and that's something that you speak about so often. So I'm excited to dive in and learn more about you and your practice and how you help so many people around the world just become better. So I would love for you to first just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into the world of being a weight loss expert dietitian, because I know that that really sparked this entire impact-driven career that you are building.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Jen, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get into this. And I could take this story in so many different directions, but the one that is really placed on my heart to share today is, what you had asked, how did I even get into the world of weight loss? And I think it kind of fell into my lap, to be honest with you. It was my very first job. I started working in a clinical setting. And I was working in telecare. So I was just strapped in with this headset, and I was having these very deep, vulnerable conversations with people, mostly women. And you know what I actually love about this? And this is like just coming to mind, but what I loved about that was I wasn't seeing people face to face, and we were talking about such a sensitive and vulnerable topic such as weight loss and how you feel in your body. And as I'm saying this, I realized it was such a beautiful way to connect to people because we didn't see each other. I was really able to listen because I was working at a telecare, like in telecare. And what I found was I had to become a really good listener and almost feel between the lines, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
So I fell in love with having those deeper, meaningful conversations with women and helping them understand their emotions and how taking care of themselves and, fueling their body and moving their body was just this representation of how they felt about themselves. And I really loved that piece of the work. And from there, I just realized that weight loss was just such a deeper conversation than just what to eat and how to move. And there was a lot of things that you get to learn about yourself as you are making change. You are thinking differently. And that's what I fell in love with too, Jen, was, I thought it was not a coincidence that I was, my clinical career, I was never surrounded with other dietitians. I was always surrounded by brain change experts. I was always in teams with psychologists and psychiatrists and, psychotherapists. And I fell in love with the brain change side of things. And I thought it was so fascinating to me. I said, okay, even if I share the same piece of information with two separate women, what allows one woman to take the information and run with it? And what is like what's stopping another woman from taking the same information and almost like feeling like there's a block there. So I really found it interesting, and I did fall in love with the emotions, the thoughts, the limiting beliefs, the stories that can truly hold us back from stepping into this greatness. And I love helping women become so self-aware of that and helping them just navigate through the discomfort of change and growth and expansion.
Wow. I'm like tingling from my toes all the way to my fingers right now because when I met you, I was connected to the way you spoke, and the way you spoke like showed me just this depth of who you are. And hearing how you got into this industry and how it's so connected, mind, body, and spirit, which is what I'm very passionate about also, it brings me a lot of peace, because we live in a world where, especially when it comes to weight loss, some of the things that I see being advertised are really scary. And I don't have judgment. If that's someone's path, great. Yet, what about the advocates that are cheering people on and holding space for a different type of awareness, a different type of change? And that's what I'm hearing you're doing. Yeah. And I think that that's very profound. And at the beginning of this talk, you said some of the themes from this week is there is nothing wrong with a steady pace, really working from the inside out. And so I'd love to start there and really, Leah, what are you seeing in the world right now with the women that you're working with from like an emotional disconnection standpoint and looking at the world of weight loss?
Yeah, well, I can speak from personal experience and also from, the women that I work with, because Jen, there was a point too where I was carrying around an unwanted, about 20 pounds. And this was, probably about 7 years ago now, but I didn't feel connected to myself. I felt like I was looking at this reflection of, I'm like, I don't even recognize this person. It's almost like the outside did not reflect the person inside. And I hear that time and time again from women when they come to me and they say, it's almost like I feel disconnected with, my body, but also who I am. And it's almost like I've lost myself, or, just allowed myself to not pay attention to taking care of me and allowed other priorities to take the forefront. They've kind of put themselves to the back burner. And there's so many quick fixes out there, like 90-day shake plan, or, fasting for 7 days, or, oh my gosh, anything, eating 900 calories a day and not having any carbohydrates, and it can really warp relationship with food, and it can create a lot of fear around food. And, the things that I used to think too, and I hear so many people say, it's like, oh, well, I can't eat carbohydrates. It's going to make me fat. Or, I even comforting self, with food. Women haven't, and I was going to say don't know, but haven't been taught another way that they can comfort themselves or soothe themselves without defaulting to food. It's almost like, avoiding food throughout the day because we're so busy, or, our mind is elsewhere. And then at the end of the day, just crash and burn and fall to food in order to self-soothe, to comfort. And to be very honest with you, Jen, food almost used as this pacifier to avoid feeling uncomfortable feelings. So a lot of that deeper work, that inner work that I do, and I had to learn that about myself too, because I was class act, would barely eat anything throughout the day, be so low in energy. I would just not be able to focus and perform and feel the way that I wanted to feel in my body. And I would just eat this, that, and everything at the end of the day. And I would eat when I wasn't hungry. I would binge eat at the end of the day. And I had to really realize, I'm like, what am I even doing here? I am not even allowing myself or giving myself the chance to actually feel what I'm feeling at the end of the day, where it was, feeling like I was disconnected from myself. I wasn't actually giving my body the fuel that I needed to feel satisfied throughout the day. And that emotional connection to myself at the end of the day. So I had to learn different ways to just feel connected to self, whether that was different versions of self-care. Like I really enjoy moving my body, and not from a place of let's go burn calories. It's very much from a place of how can I express and really honor my body through movement. Whether it is, journaling, whether it is spending time with God, whether it is, actually connecting to my partner at the end of the day, and, going for walk and talks with him, just stuff like that. So it's, we may think like on the surface level, we're like, oh yeah, it's just about the foods to eat and how to move your body. But it's much more of a journey of self-discovery and personal development. And I think that's, women really figure that out when we start to work together. They're like, whoa, this is so much different than like Weight Watchers or counting calories. This is the long lasting transformation that I am looking for, because the things that I am learning, I am also embodying. And these are like, this is just the way that I live my life.
That resonates so deeply, Leah. I've always been someone that has a very small frame. Okay. And I look at you and I'm like, I can't wait till we're in person. Cause when you see people in person for the first time, you check them out, but I can tell that we have a lot of similarities in our body. And I was someone that always had a small frame, but I always was very good at moving my body daily and eating. Yet what would happen is that in moments of stress, I would have no hunger and I would push through. And the more stress that I allowed into my life, especially during the days where I was running the Hair Solution Center, I was taking on so much of everyone's pain that I would completely dismiss myself. And I did the same thing. And this is an interesting correlation. I would come home at the end of the day, I would feel so disconnected, but I didn't even know I felt disconnected. And what would happen is I would be so exhausted and unable to sleep. And what would I do is I would be the classic in the fridge, lights off, the fridge and the light is the only one on. And I would eat and I would snack until I was full enough to go back to bed and try it again. And that was self-soothing. And I think the worst part about that would be the guilt the next morning. Yes. And so the guilt the next morning it was like a cascade where it would start all over again. And then I would go to the gym and I would eat healthy and all this, but it was a fixation. It was an obsession to try and make myself feel less guilty from the night before. And that's not something that I talk about too much, but it lives there. And even now I notice that behavior trying to sneak back. And the most amazing thing that I've learned, and this is why I'm so grateful you brought this up, I'm processing as we speak, is now I sit in the discomfort and I connect to God. Like that has been the number one thing. I connect to self, connect to God, and sit in the discomfort. And I'm hearing from you that the world is so chaotic that sitting in that discomfort is probably one of the hardest things for people to do right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, it absolutely is. And it is uncomfortable. It's scary. And sometimes we don't know what to do with ourselves in that, sitting in that discomfort. And it's in that, especially it makes it so much easier when you have a guide to help you through that.
Totally. And it sounds like the world of dietitian. When I was thinking about our conversation, I was like, I would not even know where to start with people when it comes to this whole realm of wellness, because you're up against so much. I mean, it's conversation for another day, but even the fixation on semaglutides right now. And like women are just so desperate. And that shows me that, again, there's nothing wrong with the decisions we make, but is it coming from an educated awareness of this is the right path for me? Or is it coming from desperation? Do you feel that a lot of women find you in desperation? Do they find you in moments of inspiration? Like, what is there a common theme about when you start working with women? Because from what I'm hearing, when they start with you, they dive way deeper than they ever knew possible. And so where does that journey, relatively speaking, begin?
Yeah. Both. I get a little bit of both. Like you said, some women do come to me in desperation, in a state of desperation. They say, Leah, I have literally tried everything. I feel like my body is fighting against me. Why does my body hate me?
Wow.
Things like that. And I have other women come to me and they are in the place of, they say, you know what? I feel mediocre in my body, but I also don't want things to get worse. And I love the question too. You know, when women come to me, whether they are at a place of desperation or whether they are at a place of, you know what, I think I'm just gonna like, you know, give this a go and see how awesome, you know, I can feel my body. I just love asking the question, you know, based on how you feel in your body, based on your current habits, how does this affect your everyday life? How do you show that? Like, how does this show up in everyday life? And I had a conversation this week, just a couple of new women, and I buffered the question. I said, I know this is a doozy question, but even before we start working together, Jen, like I ask these questions based on how you are feeling in your body right now, based on your current habits. How is this showing up in your life? And typically the response is, nobody's ever asked me that. Like, wow, you're really getting, I didn't even realize how much was there, because when you start to dig into it, it shows up in every aspect of our life. And it shows up on even our clothing for the day. It shows up in whether we move or not. It shows up in, like, maybe you feel embarrassed about going to the gym and you don't even realize how impactful it is on your life. Because if you're not feeling comfortable in your skin, you're not feeling comfortable in who you are likely second guessing yourself. You're probably holding back from opportunities. You're probably not going out with your girlfriends. And, you know, these conversations or these thoughts, I just want to say them out loud, because women listening, like, you're not the only one that wakes up in the morning and you're like dreading getting dressed because you're like, Greg, like nothing in my closet fits. Or, you know, you're going to a work setting and you're almost like, I don't know, you're like trying to fit into work, or you are not taking that opportunity at work because you're not feeling 100% confident in yourself, or you're actually finding yourself not looking forward to going out with your friends because you don't feel confident. You know, maybe you don't feel sexy naked, and it is impacting intimacy, not just with yourself, but with your partner. Maybe it's in your business too, right? You want to get to the next level in business and you want to be, you know, making more money, but you are terrified of getting on stage, or you're terrified of showing up on camera because you don't feel comfortable in your skin. And that has a ripple effect on how you show up in your life, in conversations, in relationships, everything.
Wow.
So it's so impactful. It's like the little pebble that's thrown into the pond, and the ripple effect is so big. And I think it's really good to talk about this, because it's like, oh my gosh.
That just hit even my heart. I had to take a deep breath when you said that, because I had never thought about that. And it's in this moment right now where I fully understand why and how you have gone from dietitian, weight loss expert to also being a mindset and business coach, because you just hit the nail on the head. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And what I feel, and you kind of just put it into a context, it's like, I'm in a similar world of wellness and biohacking, and I have people all the time that they want to feel better, look better. But the truth is they don't actually know the why. They don't know the why they want to do it. They think they know, and they want to do all of these things, mostly external, new technologies, new workout plans, new this. And I get it now. And it's like, okay, but fundamentally at the base of who you are, like, what is it that you are telling yourself every day about who you are? Because I know that up until 3 years ago, no one would have known this. I was like a class act mask wearer. I was so good at it. So I thought people probably saw right through it, but I thought I was really good. I showed up like I was confident. I always knew what I was doing. But the truth is, every moment of every day, I was second guessing myself. And let me tell you, it was exhausting, and it created so much dis-ease in my body. I had 86 cysts on my womb. It caused so much dis-ease, but no one could see it. And so everyone's like, you're so thin, you're so this. But on the inside, my body was literally rejecting itself. And so as you just said this, I'm like, this goes way deeper than just the weight, the scale. And actually, can we talk about the scale a little bit? Where does the scale come into this scenario when you work with people? Because the scale really annoys me, to be honest.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The scale annoys me as well. So, I mean, the scale, oh, frig. It's so different woman to woman. And I'll say this. When women work with me, I fully put it into their hands. I say, listen, you know yourself better than anybody. And if the scale gets in your mind and you almost allow the scale to control your emotions, then let's take a break from that for a bit. There's women that I work with, Jen, that have, they've done that inner work and they've decided they're like, I am fully breaking up with the scale because it's pulling my attention away from what's truly important. There are other women that I work with that do appreciate an objective or objective number. But I'm telling these women, I'm like, you know what? The less jumping on the scale, the better. And the biggest thing is identifying what that scale even means to them. Because here's a big thing. When women hop on the scale, when you hop on the scale, it's like the same thing with your bank account. And I put 2 and 2 together. When you see a number, what does that do to your emotions? How do you, and I shouldn't even say, what does that do to your emotions? When you see a number, how do you respond to that? How do you react to that? But what do you make that number mean? Because if you hop on the scale, or if you look at your bank account, you're like, oh shit, well, the number is down. I'm not doing enough. I'm not succeeding. This isn't working. Like all of that. And I think that's what's so awesome about weight loss, but also business, was I tell my girls all the time, I'm like, hey, I freaking get what you're going through, because it's the same feels in business. You look at a scale, I look at numbers of clients or, numbers coming in my bank account, but I had to learn to separate myself from the number and recognize that these numbers, they don't mean anything about you as your self-worth. They don't mean anything about your success or your failure. Stop making them mean something that it doesn't. You get to decide what the truth is, around the number. So it's, so what were we talking about? The scale. So I think what the big aha from the scale and numbers is just helping women understand. It's like, what are you even making those numbers mean?
Wow. That is potent, Leah. I never correlated the two together. And it's so interesting because I've done that work and not even understanding how intertwined all of these numbers and their meanings. I remember a time when my life was totally falling apart, like everything was blowing up in my face. And the amount of anxiety that would come over me before I even logged into my online banking was crippling. And now I'm like, as you're speaking, I'm thinking back to that and I'm like, that affected everything I did because I became an avoider.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see past it. And so I think that that is such a huge reflection for everyone listening to this. It's like, what are these external numbers or external things that have such a deep attachment to our self-worth that is truly like the enemy? To me, I say it's the enemy energy that's coming in and really pinning us in this little point of weakness. And the moment we can detach from that meaning and start realizing that this is just another, my partner always says it's just information. That's really hard to get to, but it is just information. And so I'm really grateful about what you just said, because at the beginning, when you said there's nothing wrong with a steady pace, that's everything in life. And could it not be true that if something is a get rich quick or like lose weight fast, like there's actually something deeper in there that's not relevant or okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I think for me, what I am so beyond grateful for is I, like, over the last, it's probably been 4 years since I decided to start up my business. But, you know, you look at that and it's slow, steady, sustainable pace. But I am so glad that, like, there's divine timing in everything. If we're trying to rush, we tend to miss stuff. You know, when we're rushing, when we're impatient, I always like to think there's holding tanks before your next step. And I read a quote the other day: success is not an elevator, it's a staircase.
Wow.
And I love that. I love that. And, you know, I think for, you know, just being in I say this, you know, being in a place of leadership, like everybody listening is in a place of leadership. Like you're in some capacity, you're leading a family, leading whatever, friends, leading clients, teams, whatever. You're in this place of leadership. And I think that just having the courage and just giving yourself permission to go deep and really do that uncomfortable work and really figuring out, it's like, who am I and what am I basing my, you know, success or like who I am off of?
Yes.
Because once we start to chip away all these pieces of identity, you know, you are not your business. You are not your bank account. You are not your weight. You are not your body. You are not your shape. You are not your size. You know, you are not your credentials. Like, at the end of the day, with all those things gone, like, who are you?
It's so true. And also having so much, like, not allowing it to be who we are, and at the same time having a lot of like pride in who we get to be.
Yeah.
And that, if you aren't following Leah on Instagram, which most of you probably aren't yet, I highly recommend going over to follow her, because one of the things I love so much that you do is you were just on a vacation and you brought people through the journey with you. What does it look like to eat healthy and travel? What does it look like to, you know, be busy and get movement in? And that's something you just said, like, we are not all of these things. We are not even our habits, yet we can also have so much pride in how we treat this beautiful temple. And so if you're someone that I think is such tangible, I save a lot of your reels. I get inspired by even the way you eat, because I think we're similar. I'm not someone that wants to be in the kitchen all the time, but I love food, you know? So some of the things that you are constantly talking about, if you were to give a few tips of if you're traveling or you're a busy high performance person, which a lot of the people listening are, like, what are some of the like foundational things, like maybe 2 things that really make a difference in our day-to-day lives to treat our body with so much love?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is it's normal to think about food often. It's normal to think about food often. And I had this conversation with a client yesterday. She's like, I literally feel like I'm thinking about food all the time. I said, there's a difference between like obsessing and like obsessing about what you ate, what you didn't eat, you know, beating yourself up about it, versus thinking about food from a stance of fuel. It's like, hey, I need fuel every 3 to 4 hours. Like it's normal to be thinking about food often. Food is a necessity. We cannot survive without it. So it's normal to think about it. And I like even on my travels, Jen, I'm literally thinking about, we're going on an excursion. We're going to be on a bus for 2 hours one way and then 2 hours back. I'm thinking about, okay, what kind of fuel can I bring with me? And the other thing is, I think a lot of us overcomplicate it. A lot of us overcomplicate our nutrition. So just getting back to basics in terms of, protein, produce, a snack could literally be an apple with a boiled egg. It could be like even your breakfast. I think this is another thing, especially, we're waking up early, you demand a lot from your body in a day when you're just, doing so much, and your brain requires so much energy. And I think we don't even realize that calories are your body's currency. Like calories are energy. So how can you perform? How can you feel and function the way that you want to if you're not giving your body the fuel, the energy that it needs? So for me, I'm always thinking about hydration is just so underrated, but it makes such a big difference. Hydration. And I'm always thinking about protein and produce because we have no problem getting enough carbohydrates. It's easy to get in carbs, but lean protein and produce, boiled eggs, chicken, it could be edamame beans. It could be, some simple, quick proteins like shrimp, some protein powders, like protein bars, nothing wrong with that. And produce, prepping some vegetables ahead of time, little things like that.
You're amazing. It's interesting you say that because the days where I'm like back-to-back meetings and using my brain, I am like ravenous more than if I was out hiking for a full day. Like when I'm in that like brain zone, I get so hungry. And thank you for that. I actually love going on your Instagram when I see like any of the bars you recommend or the ingredients and I'm using them, I feel really on top of my game. And so I appreciate that for you. And I just think that you are such a visionary in this space of wellness. And I'm just so grateful that there are people like you who are radically honest, authentic, and walk their own talk. I really have a lot of appreciation for you, and I feel very grateful to be in collaboration with you because you have so much wisdom, but it comes from a deep place of love. Like the way you speak is loving, and if you are listening to this and you resonate with, maybe you're in a journey in your life right now that you're not happy with the way you feel and you look, or maybe you heard us talking today and you're like, wait a minute, I actually see the correlation between how I feel in my body and my business. Like I highly recommend reaching out to Leah, having a consultation, because one of the things I will say is even just being in your orbit has been such a big influence on how I show up. And so if people are looking to work with you, what would be that process look like? How can people get a hold of you? Because I know that so many women absolutely need more Leah in their life.
Yeah, well, one super easy way is to follow me on Instagram and or check out my website, leahvandolder.com. So there's plenty of contact buttons in there. In applying to work with me, there's links in my bio there on Instagram. And if you're looking to just come on into my world a little bit more, I also have a podcast. It's called the Reclaim Podcast. So that's on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And I put out an episode every week.
Thank you so much. And if there was one thing on your heart that you wanted to leave everyone with today, what would that be?
Oh, give yourself credit. You're doing so much better than you think you are. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to actually encourage yourself and think empowering thoughts on purpose. It's so easy to just listen to that internal reel in our head that may have a negative tone. But as humans, we have this gorgeous ability to be able to listen to that thought or replace it with something else. So today, I just want to remind all of the listeners how sensational, how impactful, how inspiring they are, how they are making progress, how it takes a lot of courage to make change and lasting change in your life, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're not missing out on anything, and you are doing something that so many people are terrified to do. So give yourself some major credit, because it's a big deal. You are going on this journey with yourself, and you are allowing yourself to be real and raw and vulnerable with yourself. And vulnerability is such a superpower. So keep leaning into that. And yeah, it's just such a amazing, expansive journey to be able to have the discipline. And discipline, like you said, Jen, it's just such a form. It is the highest form of self-love. So
Mic drop. This entire episode was a mic drop, and I'm so thankful that you came on to share your wisdom. And even myself, I have some reflections today after hearing what you spoke about. So thank you for leading. Thank you for you. I'm so excited for what the world has to offer for us together. And all of you, I'm telling you one last time, if you're not following Leah on Instagram, please go do it right now, because I promise that her content is going to bless your life. And share this episode with a sister in your life who, just deserves to hear those little whispers of motivation in their life, because that really makes a difference. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for joining me on the Living Word podcast today. My hope is that you have something new or a remembrance that you can apply in your life right now. Isn't that the whole point of us learning and growing? To take new understandings and alchemize them through our own human experience? Please like and leave a comment or review if you enjoyed this episode, and share it with people in your life who would benefit from hearing it also. Make sure you subscribe to the Living Word podcast on your favorite platform and be the first to know about upcoming episodes. Sending so much love and gratitude to be on this journey together. See you soon.